is Junior Freestyle. I mean, so for me, looking at it from the outside, that is the creme de la creme. I mean, I don't want to put it as being, I don't want to value more than any other, but it is what everybody comes to watch. It is where we see like just some of the absolute best wrestling in Fargo.
It's the most exciting classification at Fargo. We'll put it to you like that, ladies and gentlemen. I, being a Greco guy, I like watching the 16U Greco. I like watching the Young Bucks in Greco. But
because there's a lot of unknowns in the Young Bucks in Greco.
That's why I like it. You get a lot of upsets. You get a lot of guys who maybe haven't had the same opportunities to go nationally. They get to go to Fargo and they make a name for themselves. But Junior Freestyle is where legacies are born. It's where prophecies are fulfilled. This is where when guys win NCAA titles and you look back in the pages of history, you see them in the finals, high placements, winning a Junior Freestyle championship at Fargo.
That's right. And the one thing we haven't looked up, and we talked about it in yesterday's episode, 2 days ago, with the 16U men. We showed that list with Pico and all of them, and Zahid and so on and so forth. I wonder how many 16Us end up winning a junior title. Do you think that's a natural progression, or I mean, it doesn't there's no promises made. I mean, just because you win a 16U title doesn't mean jack.
I'm trying to remember my era. Do I remember guys who were like a 16U champ that went up to juniors and won? I'm trying to remember one. I just don't think it'd be as natural progression as you think, because body types change and the style changes. I would also love, and this is Jason Bryant. I'm just giving you more work to do. Quick shout out to Jason Bryant, the guy who writes Fargo Almanac. I would love to know point differential differences between 16U and juniors. Like, do more people score? Because it outside looking in, it looks like at the 16U level, more points are scored. That's just how it looks. But we don't know that for sure. So I'd be curious on that. Like, maybe look at the finals this year and tally up the total points scored. So that might be. So that might be a scrappy project.
Maybe there's more tech falls. Maybe there's more.
No,
just a sheer number of points scored in
matches that are 12-8. It's a tech fall, but it's 17-5. Because guys that are younger are a little bit more wide open. They're not as clean typically, so they give up stupid points. Whereas at the junior level, a lot of guys you see are already polished.
More locked down.
They're getting ready for college, so they've already kind of got that little training about, hey, we got to be, elbow, like whatever the case may be, different positionally speaking, they're a little bit cleaner and crisper. But it's just a fascinating question to ask. But I don't think it's necessarily a natural, I won a 16U title, so I'm a shoe-in to win a junior. I don't think that's the case, for sure.
So before we get too far, I'm glad you brought it up. Fargo Almanac, Jason Bryant. We obviously, a lot of the things we're talking about over the last 10 Fargos, 11 years, is because of, Jason has pulled together this 200-page almanac that is just this who's who of everyone who has done well in Fargo and so on and so forth. And that's where we pull a lot of the information from. And when we talk about we own the dome, did you get the picture I texted you, by the way?
Yeah.
The picture of all the kids sitting up in the stands getting ready for weigh-ins?
I put it on mine too. Yeah, because you tagged me.
All right. So we own the dome is just, an amazing atmosphere. For those of people who haven't been to Fargo, it is like a circus. There's so much going on every single day. That's 7 days of just constant wrestling, competition, so on and so forth. I want to ask you, if you were to give a piece of advice to somebody walking in for the first time, what would be that one piece of advice for a wrestler?
So first, I made this comparison, I want to say last year. Fargo is like wrestling's Mecca. That it's this pilgrimage that you have to take at least once. It's out in the middle of nowhere. respectfully to my North Dakotans. It's in the middle of nowhere. But us as wrestlers, we convert on this one point in time and space in this one awkward location in a dome to fight it out. So I feel like the big thing to mention is that this is kind of the pilgrimage for a wrestler. My advice for someone going in there the first time is it's okay to feel overwhelmed. I feel like certain guys that maybe go there for the first time, they try to put on this bravado or picture of, I'm fine, I'll be good. And they try to portray that, but the problem is they don't allow themselves to understand the moment and kind of give themselves a little bit of time to appreciate the moment. So when you walk into Fargo as an athlete, as a coach, as a parent, if it's your first time, it's okay to be overwhelmed. It's okay to look at it and take it in a second and let yourself kind of bask in, this is ridiculous and it's a circus and I have no clue where the hell I'm supposed to be. It's okay to feel that way. So that's my biggest piece of advice is it's okay to feel that way. Don't be discouraged if you're like, what? Trust me, it's okay. We all have done it. Me, cool, calm, and collected Lucas, that ice in my veins, the whole nine. I love wrestling on the big stages. Even my first time in Fargo was like, holy, hang on. So everybody.
Yeah, no, you're right. And it's okay. I think like what you said, it's okay to acknowledge it, to feel it,
Yep.
and then kind of put it to the side and go, yeah, you know what? I'm going to wrestle a match.
Let it fuel you. Let it be that kind of wow, this is really cool. This place is big. Lots of mats, lots of people. This is exciting. Flow wrestling. I got Lucas De Silva commentating my match, which is a possibility, ladies and gentlemen. Put a pin in it, we'll come back. But just let all those things kind of be your fuel, not the end of the fire. Let it fuel it.
All right. So if you don't have a Twitter and you haven't followed on Twitter, Chase Saldate from California, now at Michigan State, he tweeted, and it was a response, and I thought it was actually an appropriate response. And I wish I could pull up the tweet. I don't have it in front of me because I don't know if it was taken down or if it was a reply to somebody. But he basically was saying Fargo's great, but it's not the end all be all. It's not that, whatever.
Yeah.
And one thing I want to show, and I'm going to share the screen with Lucas here and with you guys, is this is a tweet from Jason Bryant, starting with the women today, since we now have So down here, if you see 83.7% of NCAA women's champions from 2020 to 2023 placed in Fargo, right? If you look down at all of these other things, we're talking about very high placement of individuals. And, it also happens, he's talking about the women here, but if I can pull up the men, and I'm going to pull it over here.
I was going to say, I got a challenge flag about the women.
All right. 82.5% of 2023 NCAA Division I place winners competed in Fargo at some point during their eligible years.
Yep, that's not surprising. That makes sense. I got a challenge flag about the women's, though.
Okay.
Here's my challenge flag. They wrestle freestyle in college. And not to say, by the way, Jason Bryant does awesome stuff. Don't no one misunderstand what I'm saying here. But, yeah, you would kind of expect that because they wrestle freestyle in college. So it's kind of a more natural development. And again, don't nobody misunderstand what I'm saying there. That is a very important stat to mention.
So one of the things I'm curious about, if the percentage is that high, right? And if we look at, let's see if I can find the other screenshot I have. I'm not sure I can be able to find it.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jason has about 7 different desktops on his one computer.
I do. All right. Hang on, I'm going to pull it over here.
Bro, dude's grinding. Jason Fulmore arguably works harder than most people I've met in my life, ladies and gentlemen. Don't let him surprise.
So 2023, these NCAA champs all competed in Fargo. All right.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
So my question is Chase right?
I think So I don't think there is a single tournament that is an end all be all. I don't like the belief of, well, if you want to be good, you got to do this bollocks. I don't believe that. However, it is an important trend to mention that Fargo competitors typically do better on the higher level at college. I don't think that that's unfair to say, but I don't agree that it's the end all be all, but I also don't agree that it's not. I don't think it's necessarily important, but I think it's a trend that's interesting to notice.
Okay.
That would be my way of basically not answering that question because I don't want to pick a side. But no, I mean, look, you got to look at guys that are like Joe Rao, who is a world team member, didn't win a high school state title, didn't even place at the college level. He's a Greco world team member. I think it's or you got look at a guy like Chance Marstetler, who had a real different experience in his life than someone like Jordan Burroughs, who had a meteoric rise coming out of high school out of New Jersey, going into Lincoln, Nebraska, where Chance Marstetler was that blue chip prospect who turned left because of life. So I feel like I
Well,
just feel like
and to be
it goes
fair,
both ways.
Burroughs, I don't think ever wrestled in Fargo. So
No, but that's what I'm saying is that you kind of had they were the exactly diametrically opposed careers. In high school, Marstetler, blue chip recruit, went to Oklahoma State, whereas Burroughs, not the blue chip recruit. I think only won one Jersey State title, then went to Nebraska, which at the time wasn't a destination. It was a good school to go to, but it wasn't like it is now, where they're a top 5 school in the country. I remember growing up in Nebraska, no disrespect, being the 4th best team in the Big 12. Yeah, y'all want to talk about age. I remember them in the Big 12, ladies and gentlemen. And I also remember when freestyle, you had the ball grab for criteria instead of criteria. If you know, you know. But beyond that, I just feel like there is no, oh, to do this, you have to do that. I always think there's a lot of different roads. So that's my one thing. But Fargo.
but I will say though, I mean, it does for the typical person, if you're going to be on an NCAA Division I state, place in the podium, you pretty much have previously wrestled in Fargo. So
Yeah. But I don't think it's what I don't want to. So I'm talking to the guys that were like me in high school, or maybe money wasn't the. I'll make something clear to you. If you got the talent, you'll be able to go to college at the D1 level and wrestle. Sometimes, you may have to go a different route. That's my only point, is that I don't like saying anything is oh, you have to do that. I don't like saying that because I've seen guys go completely different routes and end up where they want to be. So that's my one. Oh God, guy from Georgia. Oh crap. Todd Smalls ended up at Iowa State, but he wrestled NAIA, JUCO, then went. You know what I'm saying? So there's routes to go. But yes, I will say that the guys who do go to Fargo on a higher scale do typically. I mean, the numbers prove they do typically end up more often than not at the D1 level.
All right, so let's jump to, because we have now kind of buried We Own the Dome in junior freestyle, and talking about Illinois, and Illinois being number 127 All-Americans, 22 champs over the last 10 years. I know. And actually I did this on purpose because we've talked about Illinois pretty much every single show when we talked about the guys.
Yeah.
I mean, we can only continue to say so much about Illinois because they continue to be at the top. All right. So, but let's jump into this trend. Let's see if I can find the trend I want to see. Okay. So these are the top, I think, 20 teams-ish over the last, I'm going to share my screen again. Over the last, All-Americans, top 20 over the last, and it might be more than 20, over the last 10 years. 10 Fargos, 11 years.
Yeah.
Illinois, Iowa, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Minnesota, blah, 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 all the way down Georgia, Florida, Idaho, New York, Texas. Does it surprise you that Idaho is the same as Florida and only one behind Georgia?
No, actually. So because I've done a bit more research, I've kind of noticed that the Pacific Northwest, specifically states like Idaho, Washington, and Oregon, and Northern California, put a big emphasis on Fargo that I didn't really think about until, kind of talking to some of my friends from out there. So now knowing that, I'm not as surprised, but also a model of consistency. 5 last season, 3, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 3, with a couple of years where nobody got to the podium. But still, consistency. But a trend that I do want to kind of just throw out there, ladies and gentlemen.
Mhm.
Oklahoma, the past 2 years, has had only 8 All-Americans combined. A state that I'm loving and buying stock on is the state of Wisconsin. 10-9 in the past 2 years. Yeah, they had the 4 in 2019, but if you look at that COVID year, they had a lot of guys that graduated in that COVID year that, not to say woulda, coulda, shoulda, but looking at my notes, I'm looking at probably 6, 7 guys that could have made the podium. So in the past 2 years, though, almost 20 All-Americans in the state of Wisconsin. That's a trend to notice. And then the other trend that I like seeing is you stole my thunder a little bit with Idaho, but I will say, look at the state of Arizona, model of consistency. 2 years back to back with 3 All-Americans. I like what I see out of Arizona State as well.
All right. Well, and for me, Iowa seems to bump up, then bump down, then bump up,
Yeah.
then bump down. And last year, 13 was fantastic, led everyone. But the question you have to ask yourself, will this be a year that they bump back down again? It just seems to be over the last 10 years, they go up and down, up and down, and up and down. All right.
Another team I'm fascinated by is Oklahoma, to see if they can right the ship.
So let's take that same thing and let's look at.
I'm telling you, Jason Fulmore is one of the hardest workers I've met in my damn life. Shout out to him. The God, the OG, the king.
Thank you, Lucas. This is the trend for the last 10 years of champs.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So we just had the All-Americans, and now we have the champs. And, again, Illinois, man, good, consistent, so on and so forth. They didn't have a single champ in junior freestyle.
No. It is fascinating to look at for me. And the most intriguing thing about this is, in a state like Minnesota, 2 years without a champ. Arizona, Jersey, 2 years without a champ. Obviously, Illinois and Ohio went without one at all last year. Is there a state there that, maybe could right the ship and get back on it? But as well, look at some of these. Look at Idaho last season, 2 champions. You look at a state like Tennessee that had a champ, Alabama with a champion. There is the intrigue there of who do we think can get the job done? But a big one to notice is the state of Missouri, 3 years in a row with a champion. Them and Iowa are the only 2 states that over the past 3 Fargos have had a champion. I wonder if that trend will continue. We talked about Missouri in the 16 years a little bit. I'm fascinated by it here as well.
I agree.
Question for you, Jason Fulmore.
All right.
You fell right into my trap. If you notice, the most champions there for one team in 1 year is 4. There's been a couple teams to do it. Yeah. Do you believe we will see someone win 4 or over, or do you think the most we'll see out of a state is 3 in this Fargo coming up?
I would say the odds are no, right? I do think that there are several Iowans that are back and could make a run. But I do think that I do think that getting 4 is a huge lift. And I really don't see let's see, was it Illinois? I think it was Illinois had 4 2 years in a row, 2018 and 2019. And Iowa had 4 last year. I would just be really surprised if anybody gets to that level. How about you? Do you think so?
I'm kind of in the same boat as you. I wouldn't be surprised if a state like Pennsylvania had 3, or perhaps Illinois nabs 3, but I don't know if someone will get to 4, or maybe even someone breaking that tally and getting to 5, which if someone does that, that might be the greatest Fargo team of all time.
Yeah, that would be crazy. I don't know. We didn't go back after more than 10 years ago. I wonder if it's happened in years previous.
Oh, I imagine there'd have to be one year where like Minnesota got like 8 before people started going to Fargo as often. It would have to be, right? There'd have to be at least one.
So, one of the things that I noticed about the junior freestyle was that Georgia only had one champ
Yeah,
over that time. Do you remember who it is?
RJ Weston.
No, not in freestyle.
Oh, wait. Wasn't Lou on? Shit. Who is it? You're gonna say it. I'm gonna be annoyed.
Caleb Henson.
Oh my god, what is wrong with me? I forgot Henson won. Yeah. Oh my god, why did I think he got second?
I don't know. I don't know.
Whatever.
One of the things that's really interesting to me is if you look at last year, these are your champs: Maryland, Idaho, Missouri, Iowa, Pennsylvania, Alabama, which you mentioned, Iowa, Missouri, Tennessee with Cody Chittum, right? You just have this whole list like of states that you don't, I mean, Alabama, Idaho, states, Maryland, don't necessarily, you don't
Yeah,
know necessarily see them. You know what I'm saying?
yeah. I mean, it's. I mean, I think we've seen that trend a lot, not even in the Southeast, but across the country. That as wrestling has continued to grow, lots of other states have started to get real deal programs. I mean, you look at Arizona, the boys at Eloy. God, I forget the name of that school. Valiant Prep.
Valiant Prep, yeah.
Alabama, schools like Hewitt Tressel, and obviously the dynasty that Thompson is, and things of that nature. You're starting to get more and more schools that are having hitters really come through their program. I'm not surprised by that. It's one of those things where, do we dare say that we're entering a new era of American wrestling where it's not entirely dominated by the same 6 states? I don't know if I'd go particularly that far, but I think we're kind of approaching on that. I mean, look in the Southeast alone. You have states developing in ways that we didn't think possible. You look at a state like a North Carolina, a Tennessee, Georgia, Florida, a little bit more on the national stage, but still that same type of unprecedented development.
I agree. Well, and so if you look at it, so on the breakdown on SEWrestle.com, we break down by weight. And one of the things we've seen as we do it by weight is when we were doing the girls, it was California, Washington, Oregon, California. I mean, it was just kind of the same states, right? And as we looked at 16Us, it was Illinois, Pennsylvania here, Illinois, blah blah blah. So the same thing occurs here in that Illinois has the most champs, or the most All-Americans, excuse me, in 6. But 6 is far fewer than what we see in so many other areas, so many other divisions and everything else. Michigan has the lead at 113. New Jersey has the lead in 2. Pennsylvania, Iowa, California, Wisconsin, Ohio. We have so many different states where they dominate a particular weight class. And why do you think that's the case in junior freestyle as opposed to like 16Us or the girls or whatever?
That's an odd question because I honestly don't know. Like, maybe it's kind of just as regions develop physically, you kind of get certain similar body types that come out of areas. Like, that's my only real guess.
All right.
That
I'm
is
with
an
you.
odd.
It's just an unusual trend because we've seen domination by the states in other areas. Illinois dominated in like 16U freestyle and junior Greco. I mean, like 9 of the 15 weights. I mean, they were number one in all of them. that's not necessarily the case here, and that's pretty interesting to me. All right.
Yeah.
So let's wrap up junior freestyle. Lot we talked about a ton today. And I guess the question is, do you think Illinois will continue the trend and end up on top? Do you see this as a Pennsylvania year? Who do you, maybe an Iowa year? Boy, last year was an Iowa year. Who do you think ends up taking it? Because Illinois was not on top last year.
Yeah. You looked at the duels, it was Iowa and Pennsylvania. I just feel like this is a year where PA is going to jump up and make the leap. I can't even really give you an exact reason why. It just feels like this is one of those years where they had a great run at duels. It kind of is almost just like going in that direction where it's like, okay, this year's going to be one of their years. So I'm going to get Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a Pennsylvania-Iowa dogfight. But you know what? I think that other states like Ohio and Wisconsin and so on and so forth,
Jason,
they're going to have some impact,
Give me your dark horse.
Dark horse. So I need to see all the rosters and everything else, but off the top of my head, based upon the trends we've seen and everything else, I do like an Ohio or Wisconsin. I like those two teams. Missouri, like you said before, with the trend you saw earlier. I don't know if they have the horses to win it, but they certainly, I think, will be in the mix.
Wisconsin and Missouri were the two that my head immediately jumped to as, okay, well, we'll just have to see, but I wouldn't be surprised if one of them made a deep run into, let's say, the top 4.